My name is Claire Clark. I'm founder of the Claire Clark Academy at Milton Keynes College, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make white glaze. White glaze is suitable for covering mousses, cakes and gâteaux. So I'm going to start the process by taking my condensed milk and my glucose, and into that I'm going to add some nappage, some sugar and some water. Now it's important to stir this so that the sugar and everything doesn't burn on the bottom of your condensed milk, doesn't start to burn on the bottom of the pan. So we're going to put that over a medium heat, and we're just going to stir that gently as it comes to the boil. Now in my other pan here I have white chocolate, which we're going to need, and the gelatine. I'm going to bloom the gelatine by adding cold water. It should be completely immersed. And by bloom, we're going to make that go completely soft. If your water's warm or even sort of blood temperature, it's going to start to make the gelatine dissolve, and we just need it to bloom. We just need it to become soft. So we're going to leave that in the cold water, take a couple of minutes. So while that's all coming to the boil, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the process of tempering chocolate and why we temper chocolate. So couverture, which is a good quality chocolate, always contains cocoa butter as well as cocoa solids. And a less quality chocolate normally has most of the cocoa butter extracted out, and it's replaced with a vegetable fat, which isn't as high quality as the cocoa butter. Now this type of chocolate does not need to be tempered. The reason for that is it's really the cocoa butter inside the chocolate that you are tempering. So when the cocoa butter melts, and you will need to melt chocolate to temper, it disturbs the structure of the cocoa butter. And the only way that you can get that to be firm again is by tempering. So the process of tempering is a process of heating, cooling, and bringing up to a working temperature. So we've got our couverture chocolate, and we're melting it, and we need to melt it to a temperature for dark couverture. You'd need to melt it to a temperature of 32 degrees centigrade. As that is melting, the cocoa butter within the couverture is breaking down the structure. So that's what I'm talking about. It's breaking down into different molecules. We call those beta crystals. Now, there are thousands of beta crystals within that chocolate, and they all become solid at a different temperature. So what we're doing is, by tempering, we're combining those to a base temperature that they all become solid. So you would temper by melting to 32, and then you would need to get down to a temperature of around 28 degrees centigrade. There are various ways that you can bring that temperature down. As you are bringing down the temperature, those beta crystals are forming together. So they've broken the structure, and then you're bringing them back together to make a nice, firm, solid knit. So there's three principles of the reason for tempering. One is to get that solid structure, and that's what we call a snap. So when you break the chocolate, it has a firm snap to it. It will also have a shine. If you don't reach the tempering process correctly, your couverture will have a bloom. It'll look white and speckly on the surface, or it just might look mottled. And that's basically the fat crystals that you can see that haven't formed into the solid structure. So we've got a nice snap, a resistance to warmth, which is the third one. So it should be solid when you take it out from the fridge. It shouldn't, or at room temperature, it shouldn't just be solid in the fridge. And it should have a lovely high shine to it. So we've melted the couverture, we've disrupted that structure, all the beta crystals have gone all over the place, we're now bringing down the temperature by adding either grated chocolate or small pieces of chocolate into the bowl. And this is called seeding. And basically you're adding already tempered chocolate into the destructed bowl of chocolate. And then those little crystals inside the bowl are going, yippee, cold chocolate. And they're all heading together towards the seeded chocolate that you've put in. So they're beginning to form a structure. They won't get to that structure until it reaches the 28 degrees centigrade. But as you're adding that, you're stirring it, you're cooling it down, the chocolate's melting, the crystals that you've added, the seeded chocolate, is melting into the hot chocolate, and it's beginning to form that structure. Now, if you don't want to do it that way, you can do what we call tabling. And by tabling, you would have a very cold marble. You're basically doing the same thing, but you're doing it, it's a slightly faster way of doing it. You're putting some of your warm chocolate onto the marble, and you're going to paddle it with a palette knife to cool it down, and then you're adding it back into the warm pan. So you're essentially doing the same thing. You're adding cold chocolate or cooler chocolate into the hot chocolate as a way of bringing it down to the 28 degrees centigrade. So once it reaches 28 degrees centigrade, it will look different. It'll look slightly thicker, look more viscous. You can almost see the crystals through the composition of the melted chocolate. The best way to do this is to actually use a thermometer, especially if you're training. It's a good way to see what happens at each stage as you go along. So if you keep probing it, you can see, okay, it's no longer fluid, it's beginning to get thicker. I can see now at 28 degrees centigrade, it will almost look like it's about to set. And you will then need to put it back over a bain-marie. You should always melt chocolate over a bain-marie. I should have mentioned that before. And if you're not using a bain-marie, you can use a microwave, but you should really extreme caution in a microwave and do it in very, very small time increments. So you'd start off about 10, 15 seconds, and then you'd take it out and stir it gently, and you continue to do that. That's for melting it. Or bringing it back up into temperature, what should we call for the working temperature, 5 seconds. So we've got the couverture to 28 degrees centigrade. So now we need to bring it up. It is tempered then, at 28 it's tempered, but you can't work with it, it's too thick, it's not fluid. So you then need to bring it up to a temperature of what we call working temperature, which is 32 degrees centigrade. So at 32 degrees centigrade, it would be a lovely, smooth, fluid chocolate to work with. And again, very, very slowly, over a bain-marie, stirring it very gently, or in the microwave, just at sort of 5 seconds at a time. If you go over this temperature, you will need to start the process again. So even like 1 or 2 degrees, your chocolate's going to be off. So it is really, really critical that you keep to the 32 degrees and use the thermometer. So bringing it back up slowly, slowly, slowly. And once you get to that stage, you will then be able to use it for moulding, for coating, for finishing, for dipping, anything where you need that chocolate to be on the surface as a finish. Whether it's on the outside of the chocolates, your cake, it should all have that resistance to warmth, a high shine, and a nice snap. Even if it's just a chocolate bar, it should all have those same qualities. So that's the process of tempering chocolate. So let's get back to what we're doing here. I'm going to turn up my temperature a little bit, as I need that to come to the boil. I'm going to take my gelatine out of the cold water, give it a squeeze, and just set it aside. So now our ingredients are all boiling. I'm going to add our gelatine, our bloomed gelatine, into the bowl. I'm going to remove from the heat, and I'm just going to stir that through gently. And then I'm going to pour that onto the white chocolate. We'll let that sit for just about a minute. And the reason I'm letting it sit is so that it does start to melt the white chocolate before I stir it through, because I've taken it out of the pan. So now that we've let it sit, we're just going to stir it through gently until it all begins to melt and all the ingredients combine together. Now I have got a little bit of condensed milk that's caught on the bottom of the pan, but I'm not going to worry too much about that because it's going to be passed out. So you can see that does look still just a tiny little bit lumpy of glaze, but it's come to the boil, so I am happy with that. I'm not going to worry. Now to make this into the white glaze, we're going to need to add titanium dioxide, which is a white colour and comes in a powdered form. So I'm going to add that into the glaze and I'm going to stir that through. Now this is going to have to be blended, otherwise it's not going to be dispersed properly throughout and it's not going to give a nice smooth white finish all the way through. So you can see I'm just combining it. You can see there's still lumps. So this is where I'm going to take my hand blender. You can also do this in a thermomixer or a robo. Now it is important when you do this to make sure that we don't aerate it, and it seems a bit what I'm saying is contradicting each other because I'm going to use electric blender to do that. The way you don't over incorporate air is to keep the blender below the surface. So don't keep lifting it out and putting it in, because that is going to create air. If you keep the blender below the surface, it won't over aerate it. So I'll bring that over here. Just put that on a nice support. And put it in to start with. Keep it below the surface. And blend it all together. Giving it a good blend. It'll take a couple of minutes to do this properly. You can see as it's blending, you can see how that colour becomes really smooth and without any lumps. Okay, I think that will do, and you can see it's nice and pale white. It's nice and even throughout, and there's no more lumps. So I'm going to, again, pass that just to make sure there aren't any lumps anywhere. So I'm going to pass that through a fine chinois. So again, I want to keep it quite close to the chinois so that it doesn't aerate. And I'll pass that through. You see it's collected a little bit of that powdered colour. That's the reason why we're passing it. And then that's ready. Now again, the temperature is really important for glazing. This needs to be around sort of 32 to 34 degrees centigrade. So we're going to let it cool a little bit before we get to the glazing process. The other thing that we can do is, if you want to colour some of the glaze, is we can colour it to give a multi effect. So I am going to go ahead and colour some of mine slightly. So I'm going to do two colours. I'm going to do some paprika, and I'm going to also do some, I'm going to do violet. So there's various colours that you can use to colour. I'm just going to take a little bit of the white into two separate bowls. And I'm using paste colour. Now I find this is the easiest to incorporate. If you're going to use a powder colour, which is also very good to use, you need to mix that a little bit with white spirit or water to make it into a liquid before you add it into the glaze. So by using the paste colours, there's no need for any additives or anything else, and it incorporates really easily. So that's the reason that I'm using the paste colour. They are very strong, so you don't need very much. Just take a tiny bit on the back of a spoon and add it into the glaze and stir that through until you get the desired colour. We're going to need a little bit more. Just want a nice soft violet. I'm going to just take a little bit more. It's a better colour. And just mix it until it's nicely incorporated. And I'm going to do the same now for the paprika. Okay, so I'm going to do the same for the paprika. I'm just going to take a little bit and add it in. That's going to give me a nice burnt orange colour. And you just keep mixing that until it's completely mixed through. If you want to pass it through a shimmer, that's also fine to do. This is a little bit more lumpier, so I'm going to pass that one just to make sure the colour is completely. So you can see that my colour hasn't incorporated. It's a little bit on the lumpy side, so I am just going to pass that through a small shimmer. There we go. You can see how that's just coming through the shimmer, and that will give it nice even colour. And that's all good. Then we're ready, going to leave that to come down to temperature until we're ready to use it.